For some folks to tap in. What's going on, everybody? This is Coach Smith, your favorite coach, uh, back full effect. And just want to talk to you young athletes on what are you doing? What's your plans? Or do you have a plan? Or do you have a strategy on how to help you get your recruiting going? Appreciate you joining me, Richard. Big Canty, appreciate you. Coach Smith, back at it, getting back on my regular roll a couple times a week, going live to talk to you recruits on what are your plans for your recruiting? What are you getting prepared for this summer, right? For you young female and male athletes out there. I did put out a brief video on my YouTube, put a YouTube short out, letting you guys know that, this is your time. If you want a free education through sports, this is the time for you to get yourselves and your parents going in the right direction. So I know we got the game tonight, the Knicks and the Pacers, and I just wanted to come on here to see, what are your plans? School, I think, has ended or is about to end this coming week for a lot of people around the country. For you young athletes out there, you young male and female athletes out there, and you need to be prepared. You need to have a plan. You need to have a strategy, right? I got 25 plus years in financial aid, helping athletes at the Division I, Division II, and JUCO levels in sports with scholarships. I know the ins and outs as someone on that side in financial aid, as well as someone who personally went through recruiting and had challenges. And so I know full well, right? And I made sure, the young men that I had the opportunity to help to coach at the high school level in my over a decade coaching high school football and track in Florida, I wanted to be sure that everything that I learned, everything that I went through, that I'd be able to make sure that my son, wouldn't have to deal with that. And the other athletes that I was able to help at the high school level to get their recruiting, talking to college recruiters when they would come to the school and visit, making sure that I would build a relationship with those recruiters when they came through as a coach, not just for my son, but for all athletes. And built a lot of good solid relationships during that over a decade that I coached in Florida. And all the time, these college coaches would ask, okay, coach, who are your rising sophomores? Who are your rising juniors? And who are your rising seniors? Right? They wouldn't just ask the head coach those questions. Of course they did. They would ask the assistant coaches. Right? And when those college recruiters would come to see athletes, and they would hang around after practice, after watching practice, and a lot of the assistant coaches, we would be sitting in there with the college recruiters that came to visit, that hung around, that wanted a little more information about our athletes and who they should go, what other high schools they need to make sure they stop through, because we knew that there were some high school coaches that weren't always on top of things with helping their young athletes. So these college recruiters, when they had a relationship with coaches at other high schools, they would ask, man, who are we missing? We regularly have a good relationship with you guys at your high school. What are we missing at some other high schools in the area? Who are some other kids that we need to be sure that we get by a high school and see? Or they knew what coaches in the area were difficult, right? I learned a lot sitting in that room with my head coach, where I coach, learning a lot about what these college recruiters would be looking for, right, when it came to football. And it's going to be the same for any other sport, whether you male or female. Hey, what's going on? See, I got some folks on my YouTube. Great. I got some folks on my Coach Smith 27 IG. I'm also live on Facebook. So I appreciate you guys joining me. Be sure if you're on YouTube, you're subscribing. If you're on Facebook or IG, be sure to follow. But I just want to come on here because here's the thing. I put out a video promoting my free webinar that's coming up. And I know, and that's coming up in a couple of weeks. and you'll be able to go to my website, lovethegame247.com, and get yourselves registered. And I know it's a lot of you young athletes out there and parents struggling with recruiting. And I shared that free webinar. I had a solid football camp that I organized back in March, late March. It had almost 100% participation, 34 out of 36 kids, right? This is Coach Smith, and I'm with Love the Game 24/7 is my business in helping young athletes, male and female, athletes get recruited. For those who want to know, if you're new, I appreciate you joining me. I appreciate you sharing this with those you know, and that you're interested in helping, these young athletes get recruited. That's what I do. I know it from personal experience and having a son who played Power 5 college football and made it to the NFL. And so I know there are a lot of you out here who may listen to this video, whether you're listening to it live or you're getting the recording. You need somebody to help you through the recruiting process, because I'm going to share a story that I heard here in a minute from Amari Stoudemire on the show with Carmelo Anthony about something he dealt with his high school coach before he moved to Orlando to finish his high school. But I'll get on that later. But just wanted to share with you guys a free webinar coming up, and you need to get plugged in, because the norm in most cases, are you're not getting the help from your coach. I've been speaking with people. I've had consultations with some athletes. I met a gentleman, as I shared before on my podcast 2 years ago on a flight, and we've always kept in contact. His son just started playing football in 9th grade, but he played basketball, soccer, and other sports. He's an offensive lineman, and father kept in contact. He remembered, and last year reached out to keep in contact. Appreciate you, Hannah, joining me on my YouTube channel. Appreciate that, and appreciate you subscribing and also sharing if you know some people that some young athletes as well and parents. But that's what my channel is all about on IG, TikTok, Love the Game 24/7, YouTube, Love the Game 24/7. And so this free webinar is going to give these parents, an opportunity to learn, and don't leave everything in the hands of high school coaches for your female or male young athlete. You got to be involved. And if you don't know, now you know, because you have Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7 and the free webinar coming up on my, and you'll be able to register, as I said, on lovethegame247.com. And I know some of you guys are going to come late, and you're going to be wanting some help. And I'm providing this free webinar, and I'll be when you, it's going to be coming up here in a couple of weeks, about 2.5 weeks. I'm going to do this live. It will probably on a Tuesday or Thursday night for just about an hour. And I'll also share more details how, during this free webinar, how you can, sign up for my services, even more detailed service, more strategic and specific recruiting help for your young female or male athlete in the recruiting process. I'll share more details about some other things that I'll be offering during that free webinar. But the free webinar is to give you some tips, just like I'm doing tonight. And so, and it's YT Speed, okay, or White Speed, or appreciate you joining me on my YouTube, giving you a shout out. Appreciate it. Be sure you share this link to some of your teammates or that okay, on my YouTube channel. Be sure you subscribe. I have a goal to try to get to 1,000 subscribers. I'm over 600, so I appreciate if you guys, help Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7 continue to grow. Appreciate you guys who've already subscribed and following and plug in, and be sure you hit that subscribe button. But like I said, I've been in financial aid for 25 years. I've been in coaching around sports all my life, pretty much. And I know people always come to me late. People come late right now as trying to get scholarship money and grant money to help pay for their their student, not even athletes. But I have both non-athletes and athletes. But people always come late. And here's an opportunity that I'm given with this free webinar to help you get off on the right foot with your young athlete at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. I also share how I'm involved with offense defense, and you can go to o-d.com for offense defense and get plugged in. We got some camps coming up as we continue to help young athletes develop. They're in the process of organizing 7-on-7 leagues and flag football leagues for girls because there are more opportunities for young ladies to get scholarships in flag football. I had a mom reach out to me a couple of weeks ago asking about it, and I reached out to someone I'll be interviewing and coming up. It's going to be talking more in depth about girls flag football and where it's headed and how the scholarships opportunities are coming, and they are coming. And you want to get plugged in with Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7. Gentleman with USA flag football for ladies. I'll be doing an interview with him soon, but we're going to have a little meeting ourselves and discuss some things, and then we're going to hopefully bring a interview to you young ladies out there that enjoy playing flag football and the opportunities to get yourself a free education in sports at the NCAA level and NAIA level, because they're coming. Okay, NCAA has already sanctioned some things. Let me fix my camera on my YouTube, on my phone. There we go. But like I said, the whole reason why I'm doing this free webinar is to get you guys started off on the right foot and share with you some other ways that you can utilize my services to be sure that you're heading down the right direction, right? You'll get evaluated, okay? You'll help give you strategies on what you need to do for your recruiting and be sure you got a solid plan. And when you sign up for my services, you're going to get ways to teach you how to train properly, right? To get you bigger, stronger, and faster. Okay, so we'll have all this information that'll be coming on the free webinar, and so you'll be wise, right? Because like I said, right now I'm working as a financial aid assistant director right now at State University. I'm working right now locally. It's the same in Florida. When I worked in Florida, lived in Florida, and worked at the private and state universities, people always come late. People do things late, and information has been out there. Okay, and some of you don't know how to go about the recruiting process, and some of you, a lot of folks aren't getting the solid information. As I shared, the gentleman from Ohio that I met 2 years ago on the plane, he's plugged in. He's I did an hour consultation with him after we've had several conversations via email, and I just said, hey, this is what I can offer my services. This is what my services are for an hour to sit down with you and your son. We sat down over a Zoom meeting, discussed some things with him, got him going. He even shared how, he got very little information from the high school coach on the recruiting process. He got tons of information from me on what his son needs to do. He's going to be a rising junior, offensive lineman. He's set up to go to several camps. He's done some things already, helped him with a plan of action on what he needs to do to help gain some exposure in the recruiting process, to help him get a free education through sports. And so that's what Coach Smith and Love the Game is all about. Okay. And so I just want to come on here and just say, hey guys, I put the short out there. Okay. And I want to be sure that this algorithm picks up for you guys out there that are pursuing, college athletic scholarships to pay for your education. Take that financial stress off your parents, right? Because it's going to be big. And I deal with it all the time. I'm telling you, I have every day I'm answering emails, phone calls, doing Zoom meetings with people, trying to help them figure out ways to help, cover the cost of their young person's education. Okay. And I've shared on this short that I put out on YouTube earlier this past week, letting you know, hey, it's coming. I'm not Coach Smith, ain't hard to find, right? I'm not hard to find. Love the Game 24/7. Go to my website, lovethegame247.com. I will have the registration up coming up this week. When I get with my folks who help me with my website, I'll get that up so you can get registered because space is going to be limited. Okay. People have to learn how to stop doing things last minute, late, and then expecting a miracle to happen at the last minute to get your young athlete a scholarship. You need to get plugged in now with Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7 or somebody. Okay. And if you don't have somebody, here it is right here. But on too many occasions, whether you're an athlete or not, I deal with it on a daily basis, trying to help people figure this cost of education. And sometimes you athletes gotta have a plan, you gotta have a dream, okay? But just know, because I've been there, I was heavily recruited. I had Division I opportunities, coaches recruiting me. Didn't have a lot of help from my high school coach. He was turning people away. Just like I was sharing earlier, you got to go listen if you haven't heard Amari Stoudemire doing an interview with Carmelo. Just Google it, and you'll hear him share. Just Google Amari Stoudemire, former NBA All-Star basketball player, and Carmelo Anthony interview about his head coach, high school coach, and you'll hear him share about his high school coach before he moved down to Florida, Orlando. The story that he shared, how his coach lied about his academics. Because he wanted to leave and go somewhere else because he didn't feel like he was getting the help or the attention that he needed. He was a top recruit, but he felt like he wasn't being developed enough. But there was a school back in Orlando, I guess, where he had some family back in Orlando, that he decided he wanted to transfer. And the coach flat out told him that he's going to change his grades and make him look bad. And this is what I'm saying. You got some grown people, adults, hurting kids because of him being selfish, because it's Amari Stoudemire wanted to go somewhere where he felt like he was going to get better prepared for college or in the pros. I don't even think he went to college, and if he did, he didn't go along. I can't remember right offhand. But he was a great basketball player. But this is what I'm saying. You got high school coaches. Appreciate you joining me, Vader. You got high school coaches who do things like that, and you need to go tap into that story that Amari Stoudemire on the Carmelo interview about his high school coach. Like I said, Google it, and you'll see the video where he explained that when he got to the school in Orlando, and he decided he went after a grading period ended so he could show he had good grades. And then when he got to the school, the coach did exactly what he said. He was going to change his grades and make them D's and F's to make it look like he wasn't a good student. So it would hurt him because he was leaving the high school and going down to Florida, down to Orlando to a new high school. He wanted to transfer. And this stuff happens more regular than you think. You got adults, coaches who shouldn't be coaches. And I'm glad he shared it, but I wish he would have shared this some time ago, right? But some people, because you don't know, you feel stuck. And like he said, he could have just had a woe's me attitude. Man, the coach messed me up, because I want to transfer and go to another school. The high school coach where he left lied on his transcript when he transferred. So he kind of had to sit out for a time period because of all that. But just go listen to the story. But that's why I say, as parents, you got to make sure you don't rely solely on high school coaches. You have to take ownership of your young athletes' opportunity to go play at the next level in college, out of high school. It's on you. Stop always trusting that the coach is doing everything. Even if you got a good high school coach that's helping you, male or female coach that's helping you, that's great. But you still do your part. You don't leave everything to them. It should be a partnership. It's your young lady, your young man, your young athlete. Okay. And you have to do your part to help them gain exposure and get into camps and all those different things. So I'm going to share on this free webinar and tell you how my oldest son got a free education through sports, and how my youngest son, also being in financial aid over 25 years, came out with very little debt, from going to a private school that was over $65,000 a year. Now, I did work there, but there were still some things he got. Scholarships, state scholarships, institutional scholarships and grant money, all those types of things. My wife worked at the hospital, didn't know her hospital at the time. She didn't realize that they gave a one-time scholarship to, to your kids, to your children. But because of my experience in financial aid, I said, hey, you need to go to your mom and have her ask HR, do they have any scholarships opportunities? She was a nurse at that time over 20 years. And it just so happened the hospital she was working at back home in St. Petersburg, Florida at the time, gave a one-time scholarship. So we would turn over every stone because of my experience. And this is what I want to do, is try to help you parents, whether you got an athlete or not, stop doing things late, right? Some of you athletes, like I said, I was heavily recruited. I didn't end up going where I wanted to go, but you got to make the best of every situation. I have to sit down and talk to some parents who trying to make this dream come, true with their kids going in this specific institution. Sometimes you may have to put it on delay and go to the community college for a year or two, or go somewhere else and get your general studies where it's not costing you a whole lot of money by staying home locally. Especially if you're out of state, then it's going to cost you more if you go to school out of state. And if you didn't get enough scholarship assistance at that university that you're going, if it's out of state, you may want to consider staying home for a couple of years until it's affordable. Right. And I know I talk to parents all the time. They want to make this dream come true, but I have to talk, some sense in them about, hey, this is going to be very expensive. So you got to come up with an alternative. I know you want, your child wants to come to this school. Sometimes you may have to put it on, like I said, a delay and come after a couple of years to save yourself hundreds of thousands of dollars. Because getting a college education is not, inexpensive. It's expensive. And you got to have, some ideas, right, on how to, not have your child's education cost so much when you have scholarships out there that if you do some things early enough, right, you apply early enough, or if you're an athlete, male or female athlete, you don't stop playing your sport when it's a means to help pay for your education and knock off, thousands of dollars of where you don't have to borrow student loan money and your parents don't have to borrow federal loan money. You got to use your gifts and talents that will pay for your education. So that's what my free webinar is going to touch on. As I said, it's going to, I'm going to share more in-depth ways that you can partner with Love the Game 24/7 and utilize the services and things that I know to help you and your young athlete get that scholarship through sports to help pay for their education. So the free webinar is coming, guys. All right. Stay plugged into lovethegame247.com, my website. Stay plugged in here on YouTube. Be sure you subscribe. Help Coach Smith get to 1,000 subscribers, right? View the stuff, share it, right? Hit that notification bell, okay? So you can always stay up on what Coach Smith is on. I'm going to be transitioning and doing some things here soon. But I got some camps coming up with offense, defense that I'm going to be working alongside. But I'm always going to be doing my own thing with Love the Game 24/7 as well. I got some other things that I'm be working on, planning for next spring. Continue to do my camp here in Wilmington, but also in Dallas, and trying to get back home in Florida as well, doing some things. But I'm trying to give as much information to you young athletes and parents out there, even coaches, right, who want to go about things the right way, right? And have people that I'm going to be interviewing and have on, some podcasts. Just like I said, the CEO of USA Flag Football for girls. I'm going to be meeting with him coming up this week to discuss him coming on live and talking about how you young ladies can get scholarships through flag football. Okay, I'm trying to help give you parents some creative ideas to help you pay for your young person's education, especially if they're an athlete, and even if they're a non-athlete. But definitely, I love sports, and I know sports is a means to you getting that education, that college education, right? We say free, you're really earning it, okay, because of your gifts and talents in the classroom and on the field. Because you got to stay eligible, right, to play your sport, young lady, young man. You got to stay eligible. You got to do your part, okay? And there's possibly some opportunities for some of you young ladies and you young men out there to get some NIL money. Everybody's not going to be able to get NIL, right? But a lot of you are. But we also can help in that area too. Hey, what's up, Gerald? Man, appreciate you jumping on. Appreciate you, man. God bless you as well, brother. That's what it's all about, help these young folk and these parents, man, understand how this thing can work for them in a positive way. But you got to do stuff, man, on time. When people provide the help, you got to be willing to invest. You got to be willing to pay for that, because you're either going to pay a little something now so you don't have to pay a lot later, right? That's the whole goal. Pay a little something now to get the help that you need. I did it. I couldn't coach up my son at the quarterback position like he needed, so he can get that Power 5 scholarship that he got going to Boston College and making it to the NFL. Right? I had to get somebody to continue to work with him from middle school all the way to high school that got him that scholarship as a quarterback. Now, eventually he transitioned over to wide receiver, and I was able to help him and his uncle, who played wide receiver as well, right? But initially he was a quarterback growing up, and I had to invest, right? $100 an hour every time he went, right? And the coach, Kaleo, that spent time, had a room full of top quarterbacks. Oladoke, if I'm pronouncing that right, he's been with the Kansas City Chiefs. Him and my son grew up together, in training together at quarterback. He was a Tampa kid. My kid was a St. Pete kid, working with Coach Kaleo. And the rest is history. He put a lot of kids on. Coach Kaleo put a lot of QB kids in that area, in the Tampa Bay area, getting scholarships. I could name more, but just, I'm just letting you know I had to invest. Right? It was challenging. It was challenging. And I had to invest in both my boys in football and baseball with the gear and all the other stuff. Because my plan was, I know what, if I give them the right tools, get them the right help, I can help them to a certain degree with some things. And I'm not afraid of, we would go over to Tampa, do some batting practice. With his buddy Zuriel Collins, Z-Man, and homeboy Mike Collins. I know he plugs in sometimes and listens up. He played college ball, Mike, and we had our boys coming up together playing baseball. My son Jeff and Zach, and with his son Z, and now he got his youngest son that's lighting it up here in South Carolina, North Carolina area. You got to invest, parents, and you got to be, like I shared. Go Google that story with Amari Stoudemire shared with the interview with Carmelo Anthony. Sometimes you got to transition. Amari told his mom, "Hey, this is what the coach said that he was going to do if I leave this school. This is what he said to me. This is what an adult coach said to a child who's just trying to make it, take care of his family." And so as parents, you got to be plugged in, because some places you might not need to have your young athlete. You might need to transition your young lady to another volleyball program that's worth it, even if it costs a little something, because the coach over here is, not a good example, right? Like Amara Stoudemire shared, just like I had a coach. We tried to tell our adult parents, we did the best we could in trying to, and sometimes people don't always listen to kids about what's really happening. And you had this coach that was messing up a lot of kids, but I refused at the time to having a coach that I had stop me from getting a scholarship to go to college. I wasn't going to give him that power and that authority, thinking that I can't, do this without his help, because he was messing a lot of us up with going to bigger schools that we were very well capable of doing. Right. And so appreciate you joining me, Don. But this is what it's all about, man. As parents, you got to take control. You got to be involved. You don't just leave everything to a high school coach. I don't care how good they are with helping your young athlete. You better be involved, because it's your young person out there risking, right, themselves to play that sport, to help their high school team. And if they have the skill set, they've been to camps and been evaluated by college coaches. If you're doing that, and you need to be doing that this summer, and you hear college coaches saying that, hey, your kid has a potential to play college sports, that's all you need to know. Are the college coaches seeing your young lady, seeing your young man, your young athlete, and they're saying to you, hey, this kid, if he keeps putting work in, could have opportunity, right? So that's what it's all about. And some of these coaches out here, Donovan, I shared about y'all kids do need the right mentors. If you Google that story with Amari Stoudemire and Carmelo Anthony, and Amari Stoudemire shared about how his high school coach was messing him up, right? And he told the coach he was looking to move. He went to the coach and tell his coach, hey, coach, I'm going to be moving down to Florida, going to the school in Orlando. And the coach, I can't remember where he was playing at the time before he moved to Florida to Orlando, but the coach told me he was going to mess him up and change his grades to F's and D's to make him look bad. And he did it when he left. And he told his mom, and his mom was like, baby, you got to do whatever you got to do. I support you. And the coach did that when he transferred down to Orlando. And this is why I'm telling some parents, you got to stop doing things late. You got to get on top of stuff. I shared on a video YouTube short in a TikTok short about my free webinar coming up here in a couple of weeks, to give some tips from a coach, right, who have experience and had a kid that played Power 5 football and made it to the NFL. That wasn't by no mistake, right? It was by hard work on his part, teaching him and coaching him up to a certain point, and listening to the other people that I was blessed to have in his life to help coach him up. Good coaches. My brother, Coach Davis at CCC at Cloverwater Central Catholic, Coach Kaleo, several others, right back at CCC. I had them around people that I trust. I wasn't going to just let my sons play anywhere for anybody, even in Little League. I was very particular about where they were going to play and who I trusted. And I paid for certain things that they needed that I couldn't provide. Like I said, my oldest son was a quarterback. He needed somebody to give him some more experience on what quarterbacks how they need to be prepared and read defenses. And he got all that from middle school all the way up to his first year in college when he got a scholarship. And I'm going to be sharing on that free webinar how you can, get more assistance from Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7. More detail, specifically for your athlete. I don't care if male or female. I don't care what sport they play. So this is what it's all about. So I just want to jump on today briefly, man, because I know the NBA playoff game is coming up, because I want to be plugged in and watch it too. But I had some time this evening that I just wanted to jump on. And so, like I said, with you watching this live or the recording, be sure you share it. Help me get to over 1,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. I appreciate that. Get the word out. But like I said, I had a successful football camp of almost 100% participation in late March, trying to help develop you young football players. Those are some sports that I specifically do some training, one-on-one training with, or group training with, is football. And I'll do some track and field as well, but definitely football and track and field. But in football, it's always running back, and DBs and wide receivers. Those are the three things that I coach up, right? And so, like I said, if you're watching, let me go to my YouTube plug. If you're watching, there's my YouTube link there. Be sure you subscribe, guys. Be sure you get this word out. I'm also live on IG, Coach Smith 27, and also live on Facebook. But I don't want to take up a whole lot of time, but I just want to just get on here, get back to doing my lives, putting out some shorts, trying to help coach up you parents and young athletes on doing things, getting out ahead of the recruiting process, having a plan, having a strategy, and also letting you know about this free webinar that's coming up in a couple of weeks. Like I said, space is going to be limited. That's why I want people to register, right? I want people to register so I know how many folks who are ready, right? Who are ready to get some real good and solid advice for their young athlete in the recruiting process. So if you're ready out there, parents and young athletes, get some good solid information on the recruiting process, then be sure you get registered when I put it out there, because I'm gonna let you know when it's out there for you to register. I'll have it out this week on my website, lovethegame247.com. And if you're serious, young athlete and parents, if you're serious, you'll get your kid signed up for this free webinar, and then hear about some more things I'll be offering, so you can have a solid plan. Because as of June 1st, tomorrow, June 1st, there are some college camps that will be popping off, right? There's some college camps already looking for kids to be signed up on. And so I hope that some of you all are ready to do that. And if you haven't done that, if you haven't gotten your young athlete, male or female athlete, signed up for some camps, college camps, look, come on, step up your game, parents and athletes. And you got to let your athletes do some things too, because they need some skin in the game, right? They need to get some skin in the game where it means something to them, right? Give them some task on what they need to do. I did the same thing with my son, right? I made him write a recruiting letter, and then I proofread it and then helped him make it better, because I already knew what to write. I wanted to see what he was going to put down, what he was going to say. I gave him some instruction on what he needed to put down, and he didn't do too bad of a job. So that's what you got to understand. You got to do your part, right? And so I was trying to see if I could do a screen share. On my Facebook. Let me see. Let me see if I can do it. Trying to see if I can do a screen share on my YouTube, but yeah, guys, man, we got to get it going. All right, you got to get your kids signed up for camp. Okay, and do your part. All right. So, but yeah, so I'll be back live. If not tomorrow, with some things, definitely early in the week. I'll be back. Let me see. Okay, here we go. Here's my share screen. Here we go. Let me show you what I do when I help folks, right? Get them on. Let me see what colleges let me see what Coastal Carolina is doing with their football camp. Let's see. So Coastal Carolina is just down the road in South Carolina, going to their football site. Let me go back. So let me go there. Let me go see what camps they got. I'm gonna make sure when I'm sharing this. Let me go. This is what you do. This is how, let's see, camps are coming up. Like a questionnaire that most athletes, oh, here we go, football camp. See, here's a recruit questionnaire. This is how you get in these schools' databases. All right, this is how you get in their databases. So this is their recruit form. I'm not gonna go through it because I'm not a recruit, but this is how you see that. You saw the link right there. Now here's the football camp link. Screen sharing. And so let's see, they got camp starting on June 12th. One-day camp, now open. Let's see, camp costs $60. If you need to rent a helmet, if you don't have your own helmet, They want you to bring helmets, cleats, mouthpiece, no shoulder pads, right? You can rent a helmet at Coastal Carolina for $20. And the camps are for rising grades 9th and above, starting June 12th, and then June 10th, and then June 19th. Those are one-day camps, right? Prospect camps. The stuff is out there, folks. You just got to do it. Some of y'all just got to step up and do it. So I shared that. Let's see what North Carolina. Let's see what North Carolina football. Let's see what camps they got going on. This is what I hold my young athletes to. I don't care if they're male or female. I make them get on. Here's that more link right here, right? For most of them. Here you can see football camps. You got coaching clinics for coaches to go to and get informed about things. If you don't have high school coaches in your sport, mom and dad going to the colleges and for high school coaches so they can get what happened to this Mac Brown. Maybe it's not up yet. I want to see what his camps date were. What's going on with his camp? Let me see. They got to get their link working. If it's not, something's going on with their football camp link. Let me try North Carolina State and see what's going on. But I'm going to get off this thing here shortly. I just want to a little bit on what you need to do as a young athlete in your sport, that you need to be signed up for camps. NC State instead of the football. So let's see what their camp dates look like. I know they got stuff coming up. Wolfpack Club. I know it's Dave Doran. I think this is his name. Where's this football camp? Here it is, Dave Doran camp. Sometimes you gotta just take your time. I know they're gonna have it there. Dave Doran, NC State football coach, got his camps coming up. A lot of them start out on June 1st. Some of you guys is on my YouTube see June 5th. One-day camp June 5th and June 12th, June 19th. They got a specialist camp for kickers. Wolf puppy camp. They got 7-on-7 camps. But a lot of these schools start their camps on June 1st. And so I just wanted to just show you that real quick on YouTube. But that's what I do. I get with folks and get them plugged in so they can know what's going on and how they need to go about giving them a strategy, what they need to do, all right, for their young athletes. And so I'll get more and more into that. But I'm going to get off this thing so you guys can go enjoy the game and I can enjoy the game as well. I just want to just jump on here briefly to let you know about that free webinar and to let you parents know you got to get out ahead of the game, right? That's how I look at it. I look at it as a game, right? Strategy. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy helping and getting, you young athletes an opportunity just like I did, right? But I had to make it happen for myself because mom didn't have a clue about nothing. She was like, oh, you can just stay here and go to community college. I'm a ball player. Mom, I got to play ball. Now, she understood that, but she's like, hey, whatever you do, I support you. But, you can stay here. I'm like, yeah, but we don't have any JUCO football here. And we didn't have USF at the time either. All we had was the big three, Miami, Florida, and Florida State, right? And UCF recruited me. They were D2 at the time, and they transitioned to Division I after my freshman year. I thought about it, but they wanted me as a cornerback, DB, and not as a running back. And I decided to go with Coach Lovett at Morningside College to play running back because I knew that's what, and I excel. Sometimes you got to stand on business, and I stood on business. And we played Central Florida, and I, showed out against them. Last game of the season, we got to come home, and the coach that recruited me from UCF, I appreciated him after the game saying, like, man, I should have recruited you as a running back. because I was better than what they had on the sideline. They had some good running backs now, no doubt. That was my freshman year, but I knew I had what it takes, and I stood on business, and I'm glad I did, playing running back, and wouldn't change my decision. But like I said, I had the opportunity because I had almost a full scholarship. Now, because I was late, because I was still looking for a Division I offer to come in, and from my high school coach messing me up, I had some people that still showing interest, and because I waited late to commit and sign with Morningside D2 in Iowa, I had like a 75% football scholarship, and then the other 25% was in track and field. And so, well, I won't say 25, 20, because I had to borrow money that year, like $10,000 to $12,000 my freshman year, because track didn't cover it all. It covered almost all of it, but football covered the bulk of it. Like 75% of my cost of education and everything was taken care of through football. But then my sophomore year on, I was on full scholarship with football, but I continued to run track. And so you just have to do what you have to do, man, to make things happen and be able to make sure, you can afford your college education, right, through your sport. And that's what Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7 is all about. And that's what I hope this algorithm catches, is that I'm trying to help you young athletes out there how to get your education, free education through sports. So I appreciate you guys joining me on YouTube. Be sure you subscribe. Be sure you follow me, Coach Smith 27 on IG, and I'm also on Facebook. But like I said, I'll be hitting you guys early up this week, giving more information about signing up for the free webinar. And like I said, I want to know who is serious about it, because if you're serious, you're gonna sign up and register. And space is gonna be limited. And so, you parents out there, if you want this information to help your young athlete, male or female, get that free education through their talent in sports, let's get it done. All right. Y'all have a blessed weekend. Take care.